Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian. Some of you know me as Triangle Investor from X. Today, we are covering Electric Metals Limited, a company with mission to become a significant domestic producer of high-purity manganese metal and chemical products. The company is trading on TSX.V under the symbol EML and on OTCQB under the symbol EMUSF. I am joined by their CEO, Mr. Brian Savage. Brian, great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks. Brian, before we cover the story around your company, please give us a 2 or 3 minute overview of your career. Share us your origin story.
Sure. I'm a graduate mining engineer from the Colorado School of Mines. Worked in underground coal mines in western Colorado during summers. And then after graduating, went back and got my master's degree in mineral economics from School of Mines. Wrote my thesis valuing gold mining companies. Worked for a mining software development company while I was in grad school, Colorado Department of Health, doing cost estimation for Superfund sites. Was mining engineer for Bank of New York, and then I was a director of Bank of Montreal's U.S. Mining and Metals Group, and then their investment banking mining group, which is now called BMO Capital Markets. Was in Kazakhstan for 13 years. We took 3 companies public, listed them in London. In China for a couple of years. Went to the Congo in 2010. Spent several years there doing a number of things in the critical mineral space, I'll call it. Wound operations down there. Was in Ukraine. Looking to develop an underground gold, silver, lead, zinc mine that was built historically by the government. Was director of Amur Minerals, which was developing what could be the top 5 largest nickel sulfide deposits in Far East Russia. Sadly, Mr. Putin put a monkey wrench in a couple of those projects. And then went back up in the Congo in 2019 and developed a joint venture with the Democratic Republic of Congo state-owned manganese company, which is how I wound up getting a deep dive into the manganese market. So pretty much understand the manganese from the ore, low, high, medium grades, fines, lumpy, all the deleterious things that might go into it, but steel mills and then also getting into the high purity products, which is what we're focused on here at Electric Metals. So I have a broad understanding of the market, relationships with big trading companies, investment banks, and auto manufacturers.
Yeah. Actually, I would like to hear more about manganese as a commodity. Can you provide us some basics like the usage, sources, supply and demand picture? What is really interesting is that manganese is the 4th most used metal on the planet.
Yeah, a kind of an unknown fact and figure. About 90% of manganese goes into making steel and metal alloys. So that's really the primary market. Recently in the news, the Groot Island mine, which I think was producing 6 million tons a year of manganese ore, got hit by a cyclone, so they're offline. So manganese ore prices are inching towards historic highs. Manganese is also used in making aluminum cans. We'll talk about high purity manganese sulfate monohydrate. If you take the high purity part off and just call it manganese sulfate monohydrate or fertilizer grade manganese sulfate monohydrate, obviously used in fertilizers. Manganese is used in animal feed. When you're walking by your wastewater treatment plant and doesn't smell so bad, that's likely because they're using potassium permanganate, which is another manganese chemical that reduces the smell and purifies the water. It's also used in making batteries, and I call it 2 streams of batteries, if you will. There's the dry cell alkaline batteries, which I like to call flashlight batteries. That uses high purity electrolytic manganese dioxide. And then there's the lithium ion battery stream, which goes into the electric vehicle battery sector and energy storage sector. And that uses the high purity manganese sulfate monohydrate. From a lithium ion battery in the EV side, about 60% of the EV batteries are using manganese in some form of their chemistry.
That's fantastic. How many of manganese deposits, economic deposits, do we actually have in North America?
Well, in my view, two. We're one of them.
That's the reason why I'm asking. So, so only two in North America, right?
Correct. We're the highest grade manganese deposit in North America. We recently published our NI 43101 National Instrument 43101 technical report to CDAR, which is where Canadian listed companies post their publicly available information.
Yeah.
And so that kind of confirmed the fact that we're the highest grade manganese deposit. Our nearest competitor, comparable, or peer group, if you will, is about half that grade at 9% manganese. And there are some other deposits out there. They're all below 10% manganese.
Mm-hmm. What is the current stage of your project?
We're resource stage. As I said, we just published our upgraded 43101. And our plan is to move just as fast as possible towards a feasibility study. The way I like to put it is you begin with the end in mind. And the end in mind in our case is producing manganese ore from the Emily manganese deposit, and also producing high purity manganese sulfate monohydrate from an HPMSM plant.
Yeah, you have the grades. Do you have the size also? How big is the resource?
Well, at a cutoff grade of 10% at the moment, if you combine the indicated and inferred, we've got about 11 million tons of, if you do the averaging, it's about 18.5% manganese. And we haven't determined the exact production rate that we're planning, but it'll be somewhere in the 300,000 to 500,000 tons a year stage. And so, you kind of do the math, and that gives us, a pretty long production time frame, 15, 20 plus years.
Yeah. Is there an option that you grow this resource even bigger?
Sure. The existing, I'll say, portion of the deposit that we're really focused on was also the portion that U.S. Steel put an open pit mine plan back in 1959. Our drill program from last year drilled another 29 holes, and that's what we used to upgrade that. Now, if you look at how the deposit is structured, I'd call it like similar to a staple, where you've got maybe not exactly north-south and east-west and north-south, but we're kind of in the horizontal portion of that deposit. And then if you go up to the northwest, there's still some open areas, and we've had some very good results from historic drilling up there.
Sounds great. You mentioned production rate. Let's say in ideal circumstances, when do you expect to produce first ore from the project?
We're targeting having everything ready to go in 3 years. That's a function of how quickly we can get our drilling program developed and then implemented and then finalized, get some additional metallurgical test work done, and complete that feasibility study and go through the permitting process.
So that will be, let's say, the most important milestones going forward before the production. But can you provide some timelines on that? So you said production, let's say, in 3 years, but this work in the meantime, can you provide some timelines?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, between, I'll call it now and the end of this year, we're in the process of developing our drill program. And again, it's always begin with the end in mind. If we know that we want to be producing manganese ore, what information do we need now in order to produce that feasibility study? And we've had strategy sessions where we've got the people doing the background environmental work, the permitting, geologists, mining engineer, process engineers, legal people. What information do you need in order to get there? And we want to make sure that when we're drilling our next round of drill holes, that we're collecting all that information. And that allows us to do some more metallurgical test work or characterization. We need to do some optimization on the crushing and grinding to determine the optimum particle size, for example, some more metallurgical test work and flow sheet. I call that the Zen of mine development. There's the process to doing it, and we're just going to go and accelerate that process just as quickly as possible.
Got it. What about infrastructure and location? Can you give me some color on that?
Yeah, Emily is in Emily, Minnesota. It's about a 2-hour drive north of Minneapolis and about a 2-ish drive west of Duluth. That kind of gets you situated. If you go 40 miles north or south, there's railroad access. Obviously, there's major highways, state highways that go through there. We've got a nice, good, skilled workforce because of it's a mining state. The Mesabi Iron Range is a prolific iron range. The Duluth port is, I believe, the farthest inland port in the world. And as far as the Great Lakes is concerned, it's able to take an ocean capable vessel. So that gives great access to other export markets. Of course, the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, International Airport. So the infrastructure for the Emily is pretty substantial.
Yeah. Do you know approximate number? How much money have you invested so far in this project?
If historically, if you go back, there's been a fair amount invested. We recently raised another $5 million and put there's been about $6 million of drilling, testing, metallurgical test work, some environmental work done. So it's been a fair amount of money, and we've gotten some excellent, I'll say, value per dollar invested.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking, because I want to get a better picture of comparable with your market cap at the moment, which is low. You're very undervalued, and the amount of money that was spent on the project and the value of the project. I got it. You also have Nevada silver projects. Can you give me an overview and plans for this project?
Well, with regard to silver assets, we entered into an option and acquisition agreement with a group back in November. They are responsible for funding 100% of that exploration and development program, as well as making some payments to Electric Metals. If they spend a substantial amount of money and pay us a substantial amount of money, they can get to the point where they can earn in a 70% ownership of those assets. The way that deal has been structured, if they don't get to the point where they can earn the 70%, then they earn nothing. And we would be entitled to all of the information that they have developed over that time. And that allows us to focus 100% of our efforts on developing the Emily manganese deposit.
Okay. You have new additions on board of directors. Dr. Quinton Haney has arrived, and Mr. Tyson Hall. Quinton is very familiar name in exploration and mining from Crescent Capital. How will these two gentlemen help you?
Reputation, primarily, as you mentioned, Quinton from Crescent Capital runs a mining fund focused on the junior mining sector. He is he's a PhD geologist from Colorado School of Mines, among other things. Understands manganese markets and has an excellent reputation out there in the markets. So I would expect that him joining our board provides an extra bit of credibility for the company. Tyson Hall has been an advisor to the company. Tyson's a chemical engineer. He's got several patents. He worked for Albemarle, which is one of the largest lithium producers in the world. And he also ran a $3 billion company in the agricultural sector. And so he understands big company, and that's exactly where we want to become. We view this as a platform to develop a very large company.
Got it. Beside those two and you, who else is on your board?
We have Dr. Henry, we call him Rick Sandry. Rick is a PhD in mineral economics from the School of Mines. He was the founder of Duluth Metals, which got acquired by Antofagasta. He's been in the mining sector 40+ years. Has lived in Minnesota 25 years, so has excellent relationships with the state of Minnesota and all those types. We've got John Kukovetis, who's a lawyer, very familiar with Toronto Stock Exchange regulations. Megan McElwain, who was the director of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and so therefore provides a lot more relationships within the Canadian market. Steve Durbin is with Quailbend. They're actually the group that came in and did the recapitalization last year. And so private equity firm that's been focused on the junior mining space, and so knowledgeable about those markets, Harvard grad, etc.
Yeah.
And then our CFO Natasha Tsai is very familiar with all the accounting, the CPA, etc. So very qualified team.
Okay, I would like to cover some company metrics as well. Can you tell me more about your share structure and maybe your share registry? Do you have some big names on board? How much does the retail have? Tell me more, please.
Yeah, retail is actually a very big part of our share structure. We've got I'll say just under 145 million shares outstanding. On a fully diluted basis, we're about 187 million shares, just under 187 million shares out. Of the warrants and options that are outstanding, the bulk of them are at a 35-cent exercise price. And so, from a market cap perspective, well, I think we're pretty low.
Yeah.
Down around in the 18-ish million Canadian. From a major shareholder perspective, Green Mineral Investors, which is Steve Durbin's group, has 16% of the company. The former CEO, Gary Lewis, has just over 11% of the company. And I believe the directors as a group are pushing 30% of the company. And the bulk is really retail.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. How much cash do you have in the till at the moment?
We're just under $1 million of cash. And we're hopefully getting the share price up. We're not in an immediate crunch to be raising money, but we'll be looking to raise some money kind of in the next 3 to 6 month time frame.
Okay.
The other part is that Mr. Biden reenacted the Defense Production Act 2 years ago, and as part of that act, listed manganese as one of the critical minerals that's entitled to Defense Production Act money. And so we're going to be starting conversations with the Department of Defense for potential funding for our feasibility study.
So they're covering like percentage of that or the full amount?
Well, that's the discussion that we're going to be having with them. How much of that feasibility study can they cover? I'm estimating somewhere between $8 and $10 million to complete a feasibility study on the mine. A big part of that is the drill program, which I believe would be kind of in the $3 to $5 million range. The balance would be metallurgical test work, and permitting, environmental work, etc. And so the Department of Defense has broad powers to fund earlier stage projects. And in fact, they could even fund projects that are earlier stage than we are. The fact that we have a resource is very positive news. So they could do $1 million to $100 million of potential funding.
That really could help you, definitely. I have two more questions. The first one, how do you handle your marketing activities? How do you approach your marketing? How do you tell the story to the investor?
Yeah, we attend various mining conferences and quite frankly, good old-fashioned shoe leather. One of the things that COVID did for everybody was it allowed online meetings like this one, which is great because otherwise it'd be a little more difficult. But I also think getting in a room with people and having that personal contact goes a long, long way. So we're going to be doing online investor meetings, online conferences, as well as in-person conferences. I've been lucky to be invited on a number of conference panels, and as a result of, I guess, my knowledge and understanding of the manganese markets and relationships with various trading companies, auto manufacturers, and the like.
Yeah. Final question, Brian. Future news flow from the company. What and when can investors expect from the company?
You bet. I think our next news release is really going to be about our annual meeting, which is on the 26th of June. That's when officially Tyson and Quentin would be on the board because they've still got to be elected by the shareholders. We've got some metallurgical test work in with Chemetco Research, who do a lot of metallurgical test work for manganese projects. Expect that in the next few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, I would guess. And then, hopefully we start announcing more information about the startup of drilling program, initiating our environmental baseline work, permitting and community engagement. And then hopefully we've got some good news to report about potential DoD funding and some more reports from kind of the usual suspects, I call them, about manganese demand based off various scenarios in the electric vehicle uptake market.
Okay. That was Electric Metals Limited CEO. Brian, thank you for coming to my show. It was a pleasure hosting you, and I hope we will catch up sometime soon again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.